We are, of course, a billion or 2 people. A billion. 2 billion perhaps, of all the 6+ billion people in the world. But there are so many people who do not believe, who are rejected. Hinduism, what is it, 1.2 billion people in India today? And when the old joke or saying used to be that for every Hindu there was a god. And India has that many gods as they have Hindu people. Talk about polytheism. But think about this. Again, who's offering, in a scared kind of way, offerings unto their gods? And again, every coroner seems oftentimes in India. What a tragedy. I think of Buddhism. You know, Buddha had no intention ever to be thought of as a god. Yet today we see him modeled in art, don't we, that pudgy body. It's even worse than Pastor Rose's body. Cross-legged. I can't cross my legs like that. I can't do it. And if I put my head down and sort of meditate on my navel, which apparently is good, I have a tendency to fall asleep. I'm sure he's praying. But someone praying on that altar is praying to a piece of art, not to God. And of course, I want to say this again. He didn't intend to be worshipped as a god. But people do today, and worship him as an idol, object of worship. Certainly apart from our own true God, how good it is to be a Christian. I think about Islam, who is very like us in many things, more than we think. They have a belief in one God. We insist we have a belief also in one God. But what a difference in our gods. How wonderful it is to be a Christian, to know there is a living God who has personal existence and who cares. He is a who, a personality, a person who cares about us. Something sadly lacking. Carrying transcendence to its extreme, too far. Islam has a God, but Allah is not a happy one to have as God. I think of animism, those so deeply involved in the spiritual world, into things of spirits of the lake, spirit of the mountain, spiritual all the time, often of nature itself. In a way, materialist, although insisting being spiritualist. I think about their view of God. I think about some in modern America who are tending more to the thought of Gaia as being goddess, Mother Nature, and being the viable equals of God. I insist to you, there is need for nothing like that. That is a thing. It is not a personality. There is a true personality. Ephesians 2 verse 4 again. He exists. He has person. You know, you and I are such fortunate people. Turn to look at Genesis. But sometimes we, like others, even famous ones, we go a little crazy in our spiritual direction. This manifested itself fairly early in the book of Genesis, probably earlier than what I'm showing here in 30. But at Genesis 30, do you remember the story of Jacob trying to lead Laban? Remember how, yes, okay, but how are we going to do this? How are we going to divide up all this stuff? And they make a decision based upon the kind of genetic, whatever, production on the skin of the animals. If there's a certain amount of stripes, this way, this is going to be mine. Anything else? Yours. Remember how Jacob tried? Great spiritual man, Jacob. Jacob put rods. What were they? Were like poles. He put poles right in front, or rods right in front of each of his animals, especially when they came to water. His hope was, we know it's rather baseless, his hope was that by this means he might influence these animals when they reproduce to come out with the exact kind of body markings that he wanted, so that he could have them when he did finally split with Laban. Now, of course, today we are so advanced, not in spirituality, by the way, but probably a little bit more in genetics. And we know that that kind of thing has no effect at all. Why did that work, by the way, for him? I didn't mention that in the first service this morning. Why did God do it? Well, the truth is it was God. We don't know why he did it. But he made it to prosper, even though even though Jacob didn't understand the whole business. This whole concept in the beginning was out of whack. But God blessed him still. May God be gracious to us on the times we're so wacky and out of shape and not functioning well. But look at Jacob. Look at what a deep spiritual man. No wonder his name is tricky. It's conniving. That was Jacob to the core. In a spiritual life, look what it manifested itself in. Foolishness. Foolishness. Turn to Isaiah chapter 44. Isaiah 44 is one of my favorite scenes in these major prophets and maybe the whole of the Old Testament. Isaiah 44 is God talking about idolatry. Notice in verse 6, thus saith the Lord, the King of Israel, and his Redeemer, the Lord of hosts. What does he say? He says, I am the first, and I am the last, and beside me there is no God. Do you know that in your heart? This matter, this ridiculousness, and by the way, it shows up in our New Age teachings that we've found for decades in this country. It shows up in all sorts of different cults that we have currently in our world. We have but one God. Look what it says here, and the music scene. Verse 9, this is Isaiah 44, verse 9. They that make a carved image are all of them vanity. And their delectable things shall not profit, and they are their own witnesses. They see not nor know. They can't know that they may be ashamed. Those verse 10. Who hath formed a god, or melted and cast an image that is profitable for nothing. For nothing. Look at verse 11. Behold, all his fellows shall be ashamed. And the workmen, they are of men. Let them all be gathered together. Let them stand up. If they shall fear, they shall be ashamed together. Let's first take metal, says God here to Isaiah, verse 12. The smith. Anybody's name Smith in this room? If your name is Smith, you are probably part of the witness protection program here in New York City. Or you could be a descendant of a smithy, a blacksmith. Many of our common name endings here in America come from something in our heritage, and it's survived and trickled down. Smith. Very often we can think of people with that name, at least some generations ago, still think about those before them as actually having been smithies. We celebrated my wife's mother's 91st birthday last weekend. That's why I was gone. Her husband, a man I admired very much, my father-in-law, a great man, his father was a blacksmith. Michigan, working on wagons and wheels and all sorts of things, especially things made out of metal, heating them, forming them. My father-in-law knew many of those skills. Also learned, of course, soldering and his hand with his hands. Here we have, in verse 12, the smith with the tongs. These are like those tongs you reach in your frying pan and take out a single hot dog. You know, you got the little handles that work like tweezers and you're lifted out there. He reaches in with tongs. He works up the coals and fashions it with hammers, and he bangs away at it. He takes advantage of what the heat does to the molten, making molten the metal, and he forms it by hitting and whacking at it. He fashions it with hammers and works it with the strength of his arms. Oh, wow. Yes, verse 12. He is hungry. He finds his strength giving out on him. His strength faileth. He drinketh no water. He gets dehydrated as he does this. He begins to faint. Hey, such is one working with metals in this way, making idols. Verse 13. Take wood. The carpenter stretcheth out his rule. He marketh it out with a line. He filleth it with planes. And he marketh it after the figure of a man. What's he doing? Out of wood he is sculpting something resembling a man who he thinks is a god, making it out of a piece of wood, according to the beauty of a man, that it may remain in the house. Look at verse 14. He heweth down cedars, he cuts down trees. He taketh the cypress and the oak, which he strengtheneth for himself among the trees of the forest. He planteth an ash, and the rain doth nourish it. Oh, yes. Then shall it be for a man to burn. He'll take that piece of wood, and he'll put it in his wood-burning stove or his campfire. And what will he do? He will take of it and warm himself from what he's put to that fire. Yes, he kindleth it and maketh bread. Yea, he maketh a god, and he worshipeth it, this wood piece that he has formed. Not at all thinking that really he himself has been the one who has made it. How can this thing that he has made be a god? Such is our foolishness when it comes to things that we worship. And oftentimes we worship things. He maketh a carved image and falleth down to it. Notice verse 16. He burneth part of it in the fire. With part of it he eateth flesh. So he uses part of the wood to heat the food he eats. He fasted. Hold on, it's giving out here. He roast, and is satisfied. Yes, he warms himself, and he says, aha! I'm warm! I've seen the fire! And the rest of it, the residue, verse 17. The residue of that stick, he maketh a god using his own hand skills. Carved image. He falleth down on the ground unto it, and worshipeth it, and prayeth unto it, and saith, deliver me, for you are my God. 2009, July 26th. What were they thinking? They could do something, make something, themselves being the creator and doing something, and then turn to that thing which they have made and worshiping it as a God. The Bible says there's something far better for us that is true, that is real, that is personal, and that there is one God. He is not to be worshipped by wood or stone or by steel. He is not to be worshipped by vain things of sight. He is to be worshipped in spirit and in truth because he is a God, fashioned or not fashioned, but who is indeed spirit and in truth. My friends, know this: the world's creativity in this regard are hard to believe, and early God knew it. Look what God did. Exodus chapter 20. Before looking at the first commandment. The first commandment says, thou shalt have no other gods before me. Notice the second commandment. It covers about 3 verses, but we'll just look at the first. Thou shalt not make unto thee any carved image, or any likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth. And then it goes on. Well, let me refer you back to Ephesians chapter 2 and verse 4. Ephesians 2 verse 4 reminds us that there is a God who is real, who is a person, and who has not been created or formed by any man. Well, I wish it was as simple as this, that declaring you would go on the line and say, commit yourself to one or the other, either to this true God or commit yourself renewed to your own idols. Too many of us have idols today. Too many of us are still working to get ourselves out of the situation of worshiping idols. For the last few months, many have been worried about houses, their housing, their investment. A house can be an idol. A house or the security of a home place can be a Christian's idol. Put your faith instead, not in a house, but put your faith in the living God. Who? Put your faith in a person, and that not a human. The person of all persons, God Almighty Himself. Nature can become an idol. Nature can become an idol. We become so materialistic that we find our hope and distraction and our joy even in nature. Nature's like money. It's the love of money that gets us in trouble when we carry incorrectly, when we go the wrong direction in our love for nature. That can be maybe our own idol. Some of us have our own Christian gurus. We have some who indeed we admire. I was reading a catalog yesterday, and here's an ad that I've never seen in my whole life, something quite like this. It says, have you ever heard of Kay Arthur, by the way? Christian Bible teacher. There's a picture of Kay, about a 2.5, 3-inch kind of an ad here. It says, win a visit from Kay Arthur. Drum roll, please. CD and Harvest House Publishers are proud to announce the Kay and David Arthur Come to Your Church sweepstakes. One congregation will win a 2-day personal visit from the renowned Bible teachers. 1 Friday session, 2 Saturday sessions. No purchase necessary. To qualify the winning church, can you get that? To qualify, the winning church must be located in the continental United States. Oh, hey! As I Baptist, we're only a handful of miles from the ocean, though. We got it close. We are close to being not in the continental United States, but we are in the continental United States. But we can apply. Maybe we could win this sweepstakes and have this noted Bible teacher come our way. Somehow that strikes me as more than a little idolatrous. My way of personality. You know, the world, not us, of course, not us. You know, we're not worried about Beth and Michael Jackson. It hasn't ruffled our feathers. But some of us, you know, when Michael Jordan goes, the basketball player, that'll affect us. We have our own gurus. We have our own